The first time I saw Marcus Webb, he was eating something called a peanut butter sandwich in the corner of the combat strategy classroom, completely ignoring the emergency lockdown alarm that had sent every other cadet scrambling for defensive positions. I should probably back up. My name is Velthros, third-generation military analyst from the Kesher Collective, and I had been assigned to the Galactic Defense Academy on Station Primus as an observer. You know, the boring job. Watch the cadets train, file reports, try not to fall asleep during another lecture about optimal shield harmonics. Standard stuff. The academy housed roughly 4,000 students from 87 different species, all training to become officers in the Unified Defense Fleet. It was prestigious, ancient, and according to every brochure ever printed, absolutely impregnable. 16 layers of defensive shields, automated turret systems that could track a fly in a hurricane, and enough firepower to turn a small moon into cosmic dust, which is why nobody expected the Krellian raid. But I am getting ahead of myself again. First, the human. Marcus was 12 years old by human standards, which apparently meant he was still considered a juvenile. His species had only joined the galactic community 6 years prior, and there was still significant debate about whether humans should even be allowed in combat training programs. They were classified as a Category 7 Deathworlder species, which sounds impressive until you realize that puts them right between the Vraxian acid spitters and the Throngan rock eaters. Dangerous in theory, but mostly just awkward at dinner parties. The kid had messy brown hair that stuck up in 17 different directions, a constellation of freckles across his nose, and the most unsettling smile I had ever seen. It was not threatening, exactly. It was more like looking at a volcano right before it erupts, all calm surface with something absolutely unhinged, bubbling underneath. "Is your species always this loud?" He had asked me on his second day, gesturing at the cafeteria where my fellow Kesher were engaging in what we considered normal conversation. To be fair, we do have 3 voice boxes, so we tend to harmonize when we talk. It is beautiful, actually. "Is yours always this terrifying?" I shot back, watching him bite into what looked like a raw vegetable with enough force to crack bone. He grinned. That volcano smile. "You have not seen anything yet." Prophetic words. As it turned out, the attack came during third cycle rest period, which meant most cadets were either sleeping or studying. I was doing neither. I was in my quarters, trying to finish a report about resource allocation that my supervisor had requested 3 days ago. Boring work. But someone had to do it. The station shuddered. Not much. Just a little tremor, like someone had bumped into a table. But Station Primus was a Class 5 structure, built to withstand direct hits from capital ship weapons. It should not have trembled from anything short of a supernova. My communicator crackled to life. "All personnel to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. We are under attack." The voice belonged to Commander Yashin, a 4-armed Palaxian who had served in 3 major conflicts and never lost his cool. The fact that I could hear tension in his voice made my organs clench in ways they definitely were not supposed to. I bolted from my quarters and nearly collided with a stream of cadets heading toward the armory. The corridors were organized chaos, everyone moving with purpose but not quite panic. Not yet. What is happening? I grabbed a passing instructor, a Kesher like myself named Theron. Krellian Strike Force. 6 ships. They punched through the outer shields like they were made of decorative tissue. Theron's 3 voice boxes were not harmonizing properly, a sure sign of stress. "They are boarding the Cadet station." My stomach dropped. The Krellians were bad news. Mercenaries, pirates, slavers, take your pick. They had been raiding outer colonies for months, but hitting a military academy? That was bold. Stupid, probably, but bold. Where are they now? Docking bays, 7 through 12. They are pushing toward the command center and the cadet dormitories. Theron's eyes widened. They are after the students. Of course they were. Hostages from 87 different species, many from wealthy or influential families. The ransom alone would fund their operations for years. I followed Theron toward the defensive checkpoint at Corridor Junction 42. We had about 30 personnel there, a mix of instructors and senior cadets, all armed and taking cover behind hastily erected barriers. The automatic turrets were deployed, their targeting sensors sweeping the approaches. "How many Krellians?" I asked Lieutenant Sorvik. a massive Thraxian whose species resembled what humans called rhinoceroses crossed with tanks. Initial estimates put their boarding party at 200, maybe more. Sorvik checked his weapon, a plasma rifle that looked like a toy in his enormous hands. They have heavy armor, military-grade shields, and something that is jamming our internal sensors in the eastern wing. 200 raiders versus 4,000 cadets and maybe 300 staff. Should have been manageable, except most of the cadets were unarmed students, not soldiers, and the Krellians were professionals. The first group hit us 6 minutes later. They came around the corner in a standard breaching formation, shields overlapping, weapons firing in coordinated bursts. Our turrets opened up immediately, and the corridor turned into a light show of plasma bolts and energy beams. The noise was incredible, deafening. We held them. Barely. They pulled back after losing 5 or 6 of their number, leaving scorch marks and the acrid smell of burned metal in the air. That was a probe, Sorvik growled. They were testing our defenses. He was right. The second assault came from 3 directions simultaneously, coordinated to split our forces. We had to fall back to Junction 38, giving up ground but maintaining cohesion. Standard defensive doctrine. That was when I heard the explosion behind our lines. Not ahead, where the enemy was. Behind us. What in the 7 hells was that? Theron spun around, weapon raised. A cloud of dust and debris billowed from a side corridor that was supposed to be sealed. Through the haze, I saw movement. Small, fast, completely wrong for a Krellian raider. Marcus Webb stumbled out of the dust cloud, coughing and waving his hand in front of his face. He was covered in what looked like concrete powder and carrying something that I initially thought was a weapon but turned out to be a metal pipe approximately 1 meter long. "Oh hey, Velthros." He noticed me and waved the pipe cheerfully, like we had just run into each other at a social gathering. "Funny seeing you here. Marcus, what are you doing? This area is supposed to be evacuated." I looked at the destroyed wall behind him. "Did you blow up a support wall?" "Technically, I relocated some of the existing structure to create an alternative access route." He grinned that volcanic grin. "But yeah, I blew up a wall. In my defense, the doors were locked and I got bored." "You got bored?" My voice boxes hit harmonics I did not know I could produce. "There are hostile raiders on the station and you got bored?" I mean, everyone was running around screaming about defensive positions and evacuation routes. And I thought, hey, maybe I can help. He hefted the pipe. "Also, I found this. Pretty sure it is from the water circulation system, but it should work fine for hitting stuff." Sorvik stared at the human child. Then at me, then back at the child. "Is he serious?" "I am honestly not sure anymore," I admitted. Before anyone could stop him, Marcus walked right past our defensive line toward the corridor where the Krellians were regrouping. He moved with the casual confidence of someone taking a stroll through a park, not approaching a group of heavily armed mercenaries who would absolutely shoot him on sight. "Marcus, get back here right now." I lunged for him, but he was faster than he looked. "It is cool, I have got a plan," he called back. "What plan?" Sorvik demanded. Marcus turned around, walking backwards now, that unhinged smile plastered across his face. "Well, it is not super detailed, but the basic concept involves them trying to shoot me and then regretting it." Then he disappeared around the corner. For approximately 4 seconds, there was absolute silence. Every person at our defensive position just stared at the empty corridor, where a 12-year-old human had just walked into certain death. Then we heard the screaming. Not human screaming. Krellian screaming. The kind of noise that meant something had gone very, very wrong for whoever was making it. "Should we help him?" asked one of the cadets. A Pelvorian female named Rissa. "Help him?" Theron's voice boxes cracked. "Help him? Did you see what he was carrying? A pipe. 1 pipe against military-grade armor and weapons." The screaming got louder. There was a crash. Then another explosion. Smaller than the first. That sounded like a plasma grenade, Sorvik observed, his professional military assessment at odds with the utter confusion in his eyes. Where would he even get a plasma grenade? I wondered aloud. "From one of them, probably," Rissa suggested. We all looked at each other. The screaming continued, now accompanied by what sounded like someone using a heavy object to repeatedly hit something metallic, like, say, a pipe hitting armor. "We need to provide support," Sorvik finally decided. Even if he is somehow winning, he cannot fight 200 raiders alone. Can he not? Theron asked. And honestly, it was a fair question at this point. We moved forward in formation, weapons ready, following the trail of chaos Marcus had left behind. What we found when we rounded the corner made me question everything I knew about physics, combat tactics, and the basic sanity of human beings. 7 Krellians were down, not dead, though a few looked like they wanted to be. They were groaning, writhing, clutching various injured body parts. Their armor was dented, cracked in some cases, and their weapons were scattered across the floor. Marcus stood in the middle of them, spinning his pipe casually, breathing a little hard but otherwise looking completely fine. There was a smudge of blue blood on his cheek, Krellian blood, and his smile had somehow gotten wider. Oh good, you are here. He sounded genuinely pleased to see us. I was running out of pipe-hitting techniques and was about to have to improvise. What did you do? I managed to ask. Basic asymmetric warfare. He said it like he was discussing homework. They expect targets to run away or hide, right? So I ran toward them instead. Completely threw off their tactical algorithms. Then, while they were trying to figure out why a small human was charging their position, I got inside their defensive perimeter and started targeting weak points in their armor. Joints mostly. Also found out that Krellian kneecaps bend backwards if you hit them hard enough, which is neat. Neat, I repeated, my brain struggling to process this. Plus, one of them dropped a grenade, so I used that on the group coming up behind me. That was lucky. He paused. Well, lucky for me. Not so much for them. Sorvik approached one of the downed Krellians and checked its vital signs. They are all alive. Severely injured, but alive. I am 12, not a monster, Marcus said, sounding slightly offended. I was going for incapacitation, not execution. That is very mature of you, I said weakly. Mom says violence should always be proportional and goal-oriented. He shrugged. My goal was to stop them from hurting my classmates. Mission accomplished, I guess. From deeper in the corridor, we heard more Krellian voices shouting, probably reinforcements responding to the sounds of battle. Marcus perked up. Oh good, round 2. You guys want to help this time or should I just keep doing my thing? We are helping, Sorvik said firmly. Take defensive positions behind. Nah, defense is boring. Marcus was already moving forward again. Let me show you this trick I learned from a nature documentary. Did you know honey badgers? What is a honey badger? Theron interrupted. Small earth predator. Absolutely insane. Fights things 10 times its size. Doesn't care about pain. Just keeps coming until everything else gives up or dies. Marcus grinned. I might have modeled my personal combat philosophy around them. Your personal combat philosophy, I said. At age 12. Never too early to develop a brand, Velthros. Then he charged around the corner toward approximately 30 Krellian raiders, screaming something in human language that my translator rendered as, "Let's go, you ugly space lobsters." We all looked at each other again. Well, Sorvik said slowly, we cannot let him fight alone. Why not? Theron asked. He seems to be doing fine. Because it is the principle of the thing. Sorvik checked his weapon. Also, if a 12-year-old human shames us by being braver than we are, I will never hear the end of it. That logic was sound enough. We followed Marcus into battle. The next 15 minutes were the most chaotic of my entire military career. Marcus was not fighting like a soldier. He was fighting like a very small, very angry force of nature. He used the environment, the enemy's own weapons, their confusion, their hesitation to shoot what looked like a child. He turned every disadvantage into an advantage. At one point, he climbed onto a Krellian's back and used the pipe to cover the warrior's helmet sensors, effectively blinding it while its companions tried to shoot Marcus off without hitting their ally. The resulting friendly fire incident took out 3 more raiders. At another point, he somehow convinced a group of Krellians that there was a bomb in the corridor by showing them a blinking maintenance panel and saying very seriously, "You have got 30 seconds." They evacuated. There was no bomb. Marcus just wanted them to leave so we could secure that section. That is psychological warfare, I pointed out. That is creative problem solving, he corrected. By the time we pushed the Krellians back to Docking Bay 9, Marcus had been nicknamed the Honey Badger by every cadet and staff member who witnessed his rampage. The name spread through the station's communication network faster than the actual tactical updates. Commander Yashin himself showed up to coordinate the final defense of the command center. He took one look at Marcus, standing there covered in dust and alien blood, still holding his pipe, and his 4 arms dropped to his sides in bewilderment. Someone want to explain why a human juvenile is in an active combat zone? Sir, he kinda put himself there, Sorvik explained. We tried to stop him. Did you try hard enough? Have you met humans, sir? Theron asked. They do not really respond to being told what to do. Yashin's gaze focused on Marcus. Cadet Webb. Report. Marcus straightened up, attempting something like military attention. I was in my quarters when the attack started. Then the evacuation alarm went off, but all the routes were blocked by raiders, so I made a new route, found some enemies, engaged them in combat, and have been working with Lieutenant Sorvik's unit to push them back toward the docking bays ever since. He paused. Sir, you made a new route. I may have blown up a wall, just a small one. And you engaged enemy combatants armed with what, exactly? Marcus held up the pipe. This, mostly. Also, improvisation and what my dad calls aggressive problem solving. Yashin stared at the pipe for a long moment. I am going to need so much documentation for this incident. If it helps, I kept most of them alive, Marcus offered. That does help, actually. Yashin's shoulders slumped slightly. All right, here is what we are going to do. Cadet Webb, you are going to stay right here, behind our defensive lines, where I can see you and ensure you do not blow up anything else or assault any more boarding parties with plumbing fixtures. But that was not a request. Marcus sighed dramatically but nodded. The final assault came 20 minutes later. The Krellians made one last push to try and secure hostages before our reinforcements arrived. It was brutal, coordinated, and very nearly successful. They had saved their best troops for this assault, heavily augmented warriors with military-grade cybernetics and weapons that could punch through our barrier shields. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and running low on ammunition. That was when Marcus, who had been standing behind our lines like a good little cadet for all of 8 minutes, suddenly dropped his pipe, grabbed a plasma rifle from a wounded instructor, and said, Hey, Commander, remember how you told me to stay where you could see me? Yes, Yashin replied warily. Well, you can still see me. I am just going to be moving really fast. Then, before anyone could stop him, he vaulted over the barrier and sprint slid right into the middle of the enemy formation. What happened next would later be analyzed by military strategists across 15 star systems, debated in tactical academies, and eventually banned from being taught to impressionable cadets because nobody wanted to encourage that level of reckless insanity. Marcus did not fight like anyone expected. He did not even fight like a human was supposed to fight, and humans already have had a reputation for unconventional tactics. He moved through the Krellian formation like water, impossibly fast and utterly unpredictable. One moment, he was shooting at knee joints. The next he was sliding under their return fire and using their own bulk against them, tripping augmented warriors 3 times his size. He grabbed grenades from their belts before they could prime them, tossed weapons into the air and caught them mid-spin to fire at new targets, and somehow managed to turn a straightforward military assault into complete bedlam. Is he dancing? Rissa asked, watching through her scope. I think that is combat movement, I replied, though honestly it looked more like someone having a seizure choreographed to heavy percussion. No, she is right, Sorvik said quietly. That is definitely dancing. He is improvising jazz while fighting for his life. A Krellian champion, easily 2.5 meters tall and built like a mobile fortress, locked onto Marcus and charged. The kid saw him coming, waited until the last possible second, then dropped flat. The champion's momentum carried him right over Marcus and into 2 of his own squad members. They went down in a tangle of limbs and curses. Marcus popped back up, gave us a thumbs up, which apparently meant something positive in human gesture language, and kept moving. Someone needs to cover him, Yashin barked, finally snapping out of his shock. We opened fire, providing suppression while Marcus continued his one-child demolition of Krellian tactical doctrine. Between our supporting fire and his chaotic assault, We broke their formation in under 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Against elite mercenary troops. The Krellians started retreating toward their ships, not an organized withdrawal either. A rout. They were running from a 12-year-old with anger management issues and absolutely no sense of self-preservation. Marcus chased them halfway to the docking bays before Sorvik physically grabbed him and hauled him back. "Let me go. They are getting away." Marcus struggled against Sorvik's grip, which was like watching a puppy fight gravity. "They are supposed to get away, you maniac. We want them off the station." Sorvik set him down but kept one massive hand on his shoulder. "You have done enough. More than enough. Probably several lifetimes worth of enough." Marcus deflated slightly, the battle fury draining from his expression. He looked around at the corridor littered with disabled Krellians, damaged equipment, and structural debris, some of which he had personally created. "Oh, right. Tactical objectives and stuff." "Yes, tactical objectives and stuff." Sorvik's voice was incredibly dry. Commander Yashin approached, stepping carefully over unconscious raiders. His 4 arms were crossed in a configuration that suggested extreme displeasure mixed with reluctant admiration. "Cadet Webb, do you have any idea how many regulations you just violated?" Marcus thought about it. "All of them?" "Not quite all. You somehow missed Section 47, Subsection 12 about improper uniform maintenance during combat operations." Yashin's expression was unreadable. "I am genuinely impressed. Also horrified. Mostly horrified. Am I in trouble?" "Oh, immense trouble. You blew up station infrastructure, engaged enemy combatants without authorization, left your assigned position, and used Academy property as an improvised weapon." Yashin ticked off each offense on his fingers. "You also saved approximately 200 cadets who were trapped in the Eastern Dormitory, prevented the raiders from reaching the command center, and personally incapacitated 43 hostiles with minimal friendly casualties." Marcus perked up. "So, it balances out?" "Nothing balances out property destruction and insubordination, Cadet." Yashin paused. "However, given the extraordinary circumstances and the fact that your actions prevented what could have been a very catastrophic hostage situation, I am prepared to overlook certain aspects of your behavior. After you write a very lengthy report explaining exactly what you were thinking." "I was thinking that bad guys were hurting my friends and needed to be stopped," Marcus said simply. Something in Yashin's expression softened. "Just a fraction. An admirable sentiment. Try to channel it through proper command structure next time." "There is going to be a next time?" Marcus sounded almost hopeful. "With humans involved?" "Absolutely." Yashin looked at me. "Analyst Velthros, you witnessed most of this chaos. You are going to help Cadet Webb document his actions for my report." "Me? Why me?" My voice boxes hit a discordant note. "Because you are the only being on this station who seems capable of following him around without getting yourself killed or losing your sanity, relatively speaking." Yashin turned to address the other personnel. "I want casualty reports, damage assessments, and a full tactical breakdown of the attack within the hour. Move." Everyone scattered to their assignments. Except Marcus, who was now sitting on a piece of broken barrier, swinging his legs and looking far too pleased with himself for someone who should have been traumatized by his first real combat experience. I sat down next to him. "You know you could have died, right? Multiple times, in several colorful ways." "Yeah, probably." He did not seem particularly bothered by this. But I did not, so it worked out. "That is not how risk assessment works, is it not?" He gave me that volcano smile again. "Seemed to work fine. Everyone is safe. Bad guys are leaving. And I only got hit twice. Once does not even count because it was just a graze." "You got hit?" I grabbed his arm and started checking for injuries. "Where? Why did you not say something?" "Relax. It is fine. My shirt took most of it." He pulled up his sleeve to show a burn mark on his upper arm, already treated with some kind of human first aid gel. "Stings a bit, but I have had worse from falling off my bike." "Your bike?" "Yeah. Transportation device. 2 wheels, very fast, occasionally results in road rash." He shrugged. "My mom says humans have a high pain tolerance compared to most species. Something about our evolution on a death world, making us kinda tough." Tough is an understatement. I examined the burn. It would have sent most species into shock. Marcus treated it like a minor inconvenience. How are you so calm right now? You just fought trained mercenaries. I mean, I am 12, not stupid. I was absolutely terrified the entire time. He said it so casually, like discussing the weather. But my dad taught me that courage is not about not being scared. It is about being scared and doing what needs to be done anyway. I looked at this small human, covered in dust and blood and burns, who had just turned a military disaster into a defensive victory through sheer audacity and a metal pipe. Your species is completely unhinged, I said. Thanks. He took it as a compliment. The next several hours were organized chaos as the Academy counted casualties, locked down damaged sections, and processed the prisoners Marcus had so generously provided. 43 captured Krellians was an intelligence windfall. The fleet analysts were practically drooling over the potential information they could extract. Medical teams swept through, treating the wounded. Remarkably, we had only lost 6 people in the entire attack. Given the initial odds, that was miraculous. Of our casualties, 2 were instructors, and 4 were senior cadets who had been defending a critical choke point. Heroes, all of them. But the casualty count could have been catastrophic if the raiders had reached the dormitories or command center. Marcus had literally saved hundreds of lives. News of his actions spread through the station faster than wildfire through a methane atmosphere. By the time we reached the Galactic Defense medical bay for his mandatory post-combat evaluation, he already had a nickname that would follow him for the rest of his career: Honey Badger. The medical officer, a Pelvorian named Dr. Cantris, scanned Marcus from 3 different angles and kept making confused chirping sounds. His cortisol levels are elevated but normalizing. Adrenaline is high but not dangerously so. No significant injuries beyond minor burns and contusions. Cantris looked at Marcus like he was a particularly confusing puzzle. Cadet Webb, are you aware that you should be in shock right now? I have been told that, yes. Marcus swung his legs on the examination table. Feeling pretty good, actually. Tired, but good. Your species' stress response is fascinating and deeply concerning. Cantris made notes on his datapad. I am clearing you for duty, but I want you to report any nightmares, flashbacks, or emotional disturbances. Combat trauma is serious, even for humans. Will do, Doc. As we left the medical bay, we ran into a group of cadets from the eastern dormitory, the ones Marcus had inadvertently saved when he prevented the raiders from reaching that section. They had apparently been waiting for him. A Vraxian female named Kessa approached first. Her species was built like armored centipedes and normally quite intimidating. Right now, she looked nervous. Cadet Webb, we wanted to thank you. If those raiders had reached our dorm. She did not finish the sentence. She did not have to. Marcus looked uncomfortable with the attention. I just did what anyone would do. No, said a Throngan male, stepping forward. His name was Boruk, and he was usually aggressive and competitive. Now his voice was quiet, respectful. Most would have hidden. Followed evacuation procedures. You ran toward danger to protect people you barely knew. Yeah, well. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. You are my classmates. That makes you my responsibility. Kind of. Kessa's mandibles clicked in. What I had learned was amusement. You fought 43 raiders and blew up a wall for people you are kind of responsible for. Okay, fine. You are my friends. I was not going to let anyone hurt my friends. He said it with such simple conviction, like it was the most obvious thing in the universe. The cadets exchanged glances. Then, as one, they gave him a formal salute, the kind reserved for superior officers and decorated veterans. Marcus blinked. You do not have to do that. We absolutely do, Boruk rumbled. You are the honey badger now. Own it. After they left, Marcus turned to me with wide eyes. That was weird, right? That felt weird. You are a hero, Marcus. Get used to it. I am not a hero. I just got angry and hit people with a pipe. Sometimes that is exactly what heroism looks like. I started walking toward the dormitory section. Come on. You need rest, and I need to start writing this impossible report. The next day, Commander Yashin called a station-wide assembly. Every cadet, every instructor, every staff member packed into the main auditorium. The mood was somber but determined. We had been attacked, but we had held. Yashin stood at the podium. his 4 arms clasped behind his back. Yesterday, Station Primus was subjected to a coordinated assault by Krellian mercenary forces. Their objective was to take hostages and cripple our academy. They failed. Cheers erupted through the crowd. Yashin waited for silence. They failed because of the courage and dedication shown by our staff and students. 6 brave souls gave their lives defending this station. We honor their sacrifice. He listed their names. The auditorium went silent, paying respects. But we also celebrate those who turned the tide of battle through exceptional valor. Yashin's gaze swept the room and landed on Marcus, who was trying very hard to disappear into his seat. Cadet Marcus Webb, front and center. Marcus froze. Oh no. Move it, honey badger. Rissa whispered from beside him, grinning. He trudged to the front of the auditorium like someone walking to their own execution. The crowd parted for him. By the time he reached the stage, someone had started a slow clap. Then another person joined. Then another. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was applauding. Marcus looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Yashin placed one hand on his shoulder. Cadet Webb demonstrated exceptional bravery, tactical innovation, and selfless dedication to protecting his fellow students. His actions directly prevented dozens of casualties and disrupted enemy operations at critical junctures. In recognition of his service, I am awarding him the Star of Valor, an honor rarely bestowed upon cadets. He produced a small medal, silver with a blue stone in the center, and pinned it to Marcus's uniform. The applause got louder. Someone started chanting "Honey Badger." Others picked it up. Within moments, the entire academy was chanting. Marcus's face turned red. Can I go sit down now? One more thing. Yashin raised his hand for quiet. Effective immediately, Cadet Webb is being transferred to the Advanced Tactical Program. His performance indicates he is ready for more challenging coursework. Marcus perked up at that. Wait, really? The Advanced Program? That is for third-year students. And one exceptional first-year student who proved he can think under pressure, adapt to changing conditions, and lead by example. Yashin's expression was almost kind. Do not make me regret this decision by blowing up any more walls. I make no promises, sir. The auditorium erupted in laughter. After the assembly, I found Marcus sitting alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The metal glinted on his uniform. He was turning something over in his hands. The pipe. Someone had apparently retrieved it from the battlefield and given it to him. Keeping a souvenir? I asked, sitting beside him. Figured I earned it. He set the pipe down. Today was really strange, Velthros. Everyone keeps calling me a hero, but I do not feel like one. What do you feel like? Scared, confused, a little bit proud, maybe, but mostly just tired. He leaned back. My mom always said that being brave does not mean you are not afraid. It means you are afraid and you do it anyway. I get that now. Your mother sounds wise. She is. My dad too. They taught me to stand up for people who need help, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. He looked at me. Do you think the Krellians will come back? Honestly, no. You made such a mess of their operation that attempting another attack on this station would be terrible strategy. They will find easier targets. I paused. But other threats will come. That is the nature of this galaxy. Good. At my surprised look, he grinned. Not good that there are threats. Good that I will get to help stop them. That is why I joined the academy. To learn how to protect people. You are going to be an interesting officer someday, Marcus Webb. Thanks, I think. He picked up the pipe again, testing its weight. You think they will let me keep this in my quarters? Absolutely not. It is a plumbing fixture. It is a symbol of triumph over adversity. It is a pipe. It is my pipe. There is a difference. Somehow, he convinced maintenance to let him keep it. It ended up mounted on his wall with a small plaque that read, Improvised Problem-Solving Device. The following weeks brought investigations, interviews, and more paperwork than should be legal. Galactic news outlets picked up the story of the human cadet who fought off raiders with a pipe. The coverage was extensive and, predictably, sensationalized. Human child defeats army, one headline screamed. Deathworlder saves academy, declared another. My personal favorite was, Tiny Terror, inside the mind of humanity's youngest warrior, which included a deeply inaccurate psychological profile that painted Marcus as some kind of calculating tactical genius. The reality was far simpler and somehow more impressive. He was just a kid who cared about his friends and refused to let them get hurt. The academy changed after the attack. Security protocols were updated, defensive systems improved, and new training scenarios were developed. Several of those scenarios were based directly on Marcus's actions, teaching cadets about adaptive combat and making use of environmental advantages. Marcus himself settled into the advanced tactical program with disturbing ease. Turned out, blowing up walls and fighting mercenaries was excellent preparation for complex strategic exercises. His instructors reported that he showed exceptional aptitude for asymmetric warfare, rapid response tactics, and what they delicately termed creative interpretation of engagement parameters. Translation: he bent rules, ignored conventions, and won anyway. 6 months after the attack, I was reassigning to a different observation post. Before I left, I found Marcus in the training simulator, running through what looked like a hostage rescue scenario. "How did it go?" I asked as he exited the sim. "Failed the objective. Lost 3 hostages and 2 team members." He did not sound happy about it. "I got too aggressive, pushed too hard." "You are learning. That is what training is for." "I know. Still frustrating." He sat down, pulling off his simulation gear. "Are you really leaving?" "My rotation is complete. I am heading to an observation post in the outer reaches. Should be quiet." "Boring. Boring. Sounds nice after everything here." "Does it? I thought you enjoyed excitement." Marcus considered this. "I enjoy protecting people. The excitement is just a side effect." He stood and held out his hand in the human gesture of farewell. "Thanks for not thinking I was completely crazy, Velthros. Or at least for pretending you did not." I took his hand, careful not to squeeze too hard. Human bones were surprisingly fragile. "Thank you for showing me what humans are truly capable of, and for making my reports infinitely more interesting." "How did that final report turn out anyway?" 27 pages. My supervisor read it 3 times and still did not believe half of it. I smiled. "But it is all documented. Your actions are part of the official record now." The story of how a 12-year-old human child broke a Krellian assault with a pipe and sheer determination. Future historians are going to think we are making it up. Let them. We know the truth. I left Station Primus the next day. My transport jumped to hyperspace, and the Academy became just another point of light in the vast darkness. But I never forgot Marcus Webb. None of us did. 3 years later, I was reviewing tactical reports when I saw his name again. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, now 15, and serving aboard a patrol frigate. He had stopped a pirate boarding action by depressurizing the cargo bay with the raiders inside. Unconventional, effective, and absolutely in character. 5 years after that, Captain Marcus Webb led a relief convoy through hostile territory, fought off 3 separate ambushes, and delivered critical supplies to a besieged colony. His tactics were studied at the academy I had once observed, and 10 years after I watched a 12-year-old charge into battle with a pipe and a prayer, Admiral Marcus Webb took command of a fleet carrier group, the first human to reach that rank at such a young age. They still called him Honey Badger. His crew wore patches with a stylized badger holding a pipe. It became an unofficial symbol of human military culture: tenacity, courage, the refusal to give up, no matter the odds. I never saw him again after I left Station Primus, but I followed his career from a distance. Every promotion, every commendation, every time he did something brilliant or insane, which was often the same thing. And sometimes, when I was writing reports or analyzing tactical situations, I would remember that day. The day everything changed. The day a child decided that protecting his friends was more important than following rules or preserving his own safety. Humans call it foolish, reckless, admirable. We in the Kesher Collective had a different word for it. We called it hope. Because if one small human could face down impossible odds and win through pure determination, then maybe the rest of us could too. Maybe we could all be a little more like the honey badger. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of threats and terrors, but it also had humans in it now. Strange, violent, compassionate humans who would blow up walls for their friends and charge armies with improvised weapons because someone had to do something. And sometimes, That made all the difference.